Hi, and welcome back. Today I'm chatting with Dr. Christy DeLeon about her journey as a firewife, and we'll be covering topics of intimacy and first responder relationships and the factors of sleep deprivation. Hi, Christy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Chelsea. Thank you so much for having me. I feel very honored to be here with you.
I'm really excited about this conversation. Tell me about yourself and your journey as a firewife, what you do, and who you serve.
Yes. So let's see here. I'll start with the journey to the fire wife because that one started first. My husband and I met up at UC Davis when we were both finishing up there. And at that point, he was already committed to the fire service as far as that being what he was going to do after college. He had been on a couple of wildland fires up there, and that's where he really fell in love with the career. And so I feel that it was actually a blessing that from the beginning of our relationship, I was already starting to form an idea of how the dynamics in our relationship would be like with him being away. Because I am part of that generation that, and I feel like perhaps you are as well, since your husband's been in it for a while, that when they were trying to get into the fire service, they had to really be building their resume. So they were taking volunteer positions all over the place on top of working on an ambulance and earning $12 an hour. It was crazy town. And felt like I hardly felt him just because there were so many people applying for the position and there was like two positions or something. And so it was a scramble. And so that started to inform me, like I mentioned, about how he will probably not be around a lot. And I was actually okay with it because I was still in the process of pursuing my education after undergrad. So it left me time to do those things. And then for me not to feel guilty of having to study or go to class and work. So it worked out actually really well, having that history already built into our relationship. So yeah, we dated for about probably like 6 years and then got married when we were 28, which is great. And right after that, started having kids. We both had committed to each other. We wanted to have at least our first child by the age of 30. And then since the goalie was already out, we had our second child right away. Might as well, the Band-Aid's already ripped off, continue the sleep deprivation of that time. And right? Which I think that's when it really hit me, the challenge of this life, of him not being there, being a first time mom, having two kids 14 months apart was so intense. And I remember distinctly after the second one was born, I don't think he was like a month old yet. And my husband had just gone back to work, that I have him in a sling, the older one in a high chair. The older one is, of course, refusing to eat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you just have to eat. I'm bouncing the little one. And I just like break down into tears because, like, I don't think I could do this. What have we done? This is ridiculous. And I think actually at that point, too, I was like, you know what? We're going to need some additional help around here because this is a lot when you're gone. And he was a part of an agency who had a lot of overtimes. So yeah, feeling that frustration of getting excited for him to come home and then to get that phone call of I'm not coming home was right. I see you, like it like stirs up that feeling of like, how can this be possible? How am I going to survive today? How am I going to not want to resent you when you come home because you're not having to deal with this chaos and I'm left with having to pick up all the pieces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So definitely want to empathize with those firewives that are in that season because that is such a hard season for sure. And I think at that time too, I was still in graduate school. I was finishing up my doctorate and I was still working. And then, right, the kids, thankfully, both his mom and my mom were able to come home and help out. But it was a lot. It was really hard. We fought a lot during that time because we were both just pushed to our maxes on what we could hold. And I think that's a piece that sometimes we forget that when you don't have all your resources available, just when you're stressed out and sleep deprived, you're very vulnerable to taking a lot of things personally and to reacting off of emotion because you're on survival mode.
Yeah, I feel like you guys were in the thick of it at the same time we were in the thick of it. So I have a 14 and a 17-year-old,
Mm.
so I think that we were new moms about the same time.
Yes.
I might have been a little older, but
Yeah. That's neither here nor there.
neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But it's the same or maybe even younger actually, because I had all of my kids before I was 28.
Oh, yeah.
I might
Then
have been
you
younger
were.
than
Yes. Yeah.
even younger than you. So here we are trying to figure out our life as a 28-year-old, or younger, right? And then
Yeah.
we had kids and I was working full time and like you literally saw me take that deep breath
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, this is my story."
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
This was our story. And at the time that you and I were coming up as firewives, there
Mhm.
wasn't anybody telling us like, "Hey, me too." For me and our agency, we couldn't admit that we were having all these issues because we would have been told, "Oh, well, you just need to be strong."
Mm.
But
Yeah.
how?
Yeah.
Like, but how?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's telling you how to be strong, they're just telling you to be strong.
Right.
So, we're all taking a big collective breath for those of us that
Yes.
are having children and working full time,
Mhm.
and that's the exact reason we're having this conversation today is because I don't ever want another person to go through the
Right.
hard stuff alone. And you're
Yeah.
right, the resentment just built up. We fought all the time too, and you're trying to make a living, and at the time,
Mhm.
we weren't making enough,
Right.
really. So,
Mhm.
they're taking as much overtime as they possibly can when they're not being forced.
Yeah.
So, totally hear you.
Um,
So, fast forward
fast forward. Yeah. We're
through
still
all of
married.
our we're still married.
We've made it to the side.
Made
Yes.
it to the side where we're not resentful anymore, okay.
Right. Yes. Yes. Exactly.
So,
Yes.
fast forward, and now you have your kids are teens like my kids are.
Yes. Yeah.
So, tell me about that and what you're doing
Oh
now.
gosh. Yeah. So, yes, they are 14 and 15. So we're now in that next stage that for some families, and we chat a little bit, can be challenging again because you said very accurately, it's like teenagers and toddlers have more in common than we want to admit. Thankfully, we're not changing diapers, hopefully, but still, like setting the boundaries, the consequences, the follow through, having to, I feel like, patrol them in certain ways because both of my boys are neurodivergent. The older one has high functioning autism, the younger one has ADHD. The older one, although his symptoms are very subtle, they still pose challenges, social anxiety, which then causes him to forget things, not very present. He's more of an introvert, which then makes trying to have conversations with him a challenge. And also, I will admit, hard to remember sometimes that he's going through those challenges internally because it's not like an external challenge that you get that visual cue of like, oh, yeah, before I enter this conversation, let me cue myself up for what challenges we're probably going to face in this
Well, and high
conversation.
functioning yeah, and
Yeah.
high functioning, highly intelligent as well. I have
Oh,
a high
sure.
functioning yeah, so I have one that's high functioning autism as well.
Oh,
He is now 21 and going to
mm.
UC Davis. So,
Oh,
yeah.
congratulations.
So I have some experience in that
Yes.
realm.
Yes.
You forget
Yeah.
that because they're so high functioning, you
Mhm.
forget that sometimes you have to come in with kid gloves, right?
Yes.
Like, I
Totally.
forget now that he's an adult even.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
have we can't have in-depth conversations until he's ready,
Yeah.
and I've kind of preloaded what I'm gonna say.
Right.
And then also add to the fact that he is very, very intelligent. Sometimes I feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room. Okay, you know way more about the subject than I do. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, look at he's
So,
at Davis, he's launched. I mean, that is
yes,
such a success. Congratulations. And a
thank
testament
you.
to you and your husband and how, he was able to feel supported enough and confident enough to make that leap.
He's amazing. But I completely understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. So then you have ADHD
Mm.
in the younger one,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that poses its own set of challenges as well. I also have an ADHD child, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. So
Yes.
so then you
Oh my
have the
God.
total opposite problem with that one, right?
Yes, we do. Yes. Yeah.
Very emotional,
Oh, yeah.
very they have a lot of
Mm,
passion. I feel like my ADHD child is kind of always on the defense
yeah.
a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And for him, it's helped him in sports that, quick thinking, that impulsivity, has been amazing for him in sports. And he's such a great athlete. Parents of athletes, our life gets consumed by their schedule, which, right, keep reminding myself those posts of you only have them for 18 summers, or at some point when the car is quiet and you don't have to run around, you'll miss it. So I keep telling myself at some point I'm going to miss all of this, which I'm sure I will. But it's a challenge too, because when he's not on the field, then it's like, okay, well, I do need you to zero in on your responsibilities at home. You do need to contribute and, you know, facing those things as well, which I'm glad that they're different, because if they were both the same, I probably wouldn't have hair.
That's why I have gray hair.
Yeah.
Um, so I have a third one who also is neurodivergent, has dyslexia. So I have 3 IEP
Yes.
meetings
Oh my
every year.
gosh.
And you know
Yeah.
what that's like, right? So
Yes.
it's a whole thing, but they're each different. They're each lovable. They're wonderful children, not
Yes.
complaining at all.
I know.
But it does add to that stressor
Oh my
when
gosh.
you have a parent that's out of the home
Exactly.
like ours,
Yes, you're so
right?
right. Yeah. And having to be the one who's managing their assessments, holding people accountable, continuing to be the main conduit of communication between them and the school. That right there can be a part-time job, a full-time job
Yes.
if you have
Yes.
multiples that
Yes.
need
It is a
extra
full
care.
time.
Yes. Oh my
It is a full-time job.
gosh. Yeah.
Um, so one thing that my husband and I have kind of done is we've divided and conquered. So
Mm,
I became the expert in autism. He became the expert. Well, he is the expert in dyslexia because he is also dyslexic. And so he is really the person driving the IEP meetings for our youngest. And then our middle one, we kind of do together. So it
mhm.
doesn't feel as overwhelming to the point where on the emergency contact forums, my name is first on one of theirs and his name is first on the other. So they're not calling one
Good.
or the other all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is
Yeah.
awesome. Good for you guys to have split that
But
up.
we've only learned that because we've been doing this for
Oh,
so long, and finally, when they got into high school, I'm like, "You have to take one of them." So, that's a little tip
yeah.
for those of you listening that have this going on.
Gosh.
Just separate it.
Yeah.
Become the expert in one thing. You can't be everything for everybody
I
all the time,
know. Yeah.
and they can do a lot from their phone. So, you're managing the home, and then you also work.
Yes. Well, I'm a psychologist, licensed marriage and family therapist. I specialize in sex and couples therapy. That has been, I think, a long time coming, in that earlier in my career, I was focusing more on a lot of anxiety and stress and depression, worked with teens, individual adults. And as I've progressed, my adults were coming in more with relationship issue. And I started seeing the limitations of just doing individual therapy, right? Because you're only getting half the story. And we
Mhm,
know every story has three sides: them, ours, and the truth. And
mhm,
I realized, like, I have to bring in the other person so that there truly is the opportunity for healing, for reconciliation, for better understanding, and being able to talk about those feelings that are probably contributing to the unhealthy behaviors and dynamics that are going on in the relationship. So the last couple years have been a lot of intense work on my side, as far as continuing to refine the skills I had to translate into the room, to focus with couples. And of course, I think that's also helped my own relationship, because I'm like, okay, these are actually really important things that any relationship needs to have, not just when they're in crisis. Hopefully, to use almost as preventative. So we're not
mhm.
in crisis. We're not at the point of having to discern, am I staying in this marriage or not? So that has been so exciting to be able to help the individual through helping the couple, and then being able to save marriages too, which has been an amazing part of the work.
I love that you just said that. That's the goal, saving marriages. I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times that we've gone to therapy, the first thing that gets brought up is divorce, and I'm like, "Why
Mm,
do we even start there? That's not what we
yeah.
came to therapy for."
Yeah.
So I love that you said the goal is to save the marriage, not to end the marriage, right?
Right. Yes.
Chef's kiss to that. Like,
Yes.
can't agree more. So, we talked off camera about there is a common thread right now going
Mhm.
on in, fire relationships in general
Mhm.
about problems with intimacy,
Yeah.
and maybe there's a little bit of misunderstanding going on between couples, and we're seeing it a lot in chat rooms and in communities, and so let's
Mhm.
get into it. Like, what do you think the main culprit is, and
Mhm.
how do we improve our relationship in that realm?
That's a great question. A lot of it that I've seen in the room often boils down to trust. Trust not necessarily meaning that I'm concerned about infidelity, but even emotional trust. Both men and women, sometimes intimacy can look different. Like a lot of women, it's I want more of that emotional intimacy because when I feel emotionally connected to you, then I feel like I can trust you to be naked with you. And for men, it's right, I connect to you by having sex. And that's when I feel like I can trust you to be able to unpack this black box of emotions that I probably never unpacked with anyone. And so they're like on either side of the coin. But yet, if we reduce it down to just that foundation of trust, and do I feel like I can trust my husband to open up with my emotions? Or is he too sleep deprived? Or is he too emotionally reactive? Or is he too anxious? Or often I hear like he's stuck on his phone and he's disconnected, he's not present. So I don't necessarily trust that I can go there with him, or that if I say it, he'll actually listen and understand. And then when I hear a lot from men recently, which has been heartbreaking to me, these husbands who are like, I love my wife. I want to connect with her, but I feel like it's a moving goalpost on what I have to do. That I'm scurrying around the house, making sure everything's in order so that she feels then that she could, have sex with me. But then if one thing falls out of place, nothing that I've done counts. And then my needs aren't able to get met. But I feel like I'm just running around like a chicken with its head cut off trying to meet her needs. And I love her, but I feel like she's unavailable to me.
So, how do we bridge the gap?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think in having a better understanding and compassion for each other of we both have similar needs, but often they require perhaps a different approach to be met, helps to lower the defenses of okay, I realize like you want to connect with me and you want to be intimately connected with me. What do I also need to change so that you feel like you can and that I can with you? The conversation changes when the person is willing to ask themselves, how am I contributing to the conflict or to the disconnection? Rather than, well, they need to do this, they haven't been doing this, they keep falling short here, whatever it is. Because that just keeps the walls up for everyone, right? Well, I can't talk to them. Like, they don't want to hear me. She just keeps pointing out where I'm falling short. Or he just wants the house tidy and I feel like I can't keep it straight enough because sometimes there's little OCD tendencies with everyone sometimes, especially when they go like from the station to home and we still have little kids and we practically have a daycare center and we can't change that, right? Because the stage of life. So I get there's like those idiosyncrasies for everyone, but going back to what I shared about when we're willing to even come out and asking, what can I do different so that you feel like you can show up differently in the relationship, so that you can share more, so you can be more present? Because what I've been seeing a lot of, and I've been meaning to do a post about it. I mean, I posted yesterday something on sacrifice, right? On the Ignited community, and how when we come into relationships from this place of, you know, this understanding of this is going to require a lot of sacrifice on my end, fire or not, right? Marriage in and of itself, I feel that's one of those foundational pieces. There's a lot of sacrifice because when we take those vows, I think sometimes we're maybe delusional a little bit on, or just don't know on the
Right?
extent of sacrifice needed to maintain a marriage. Because I
Mhm.
heard once that how our commitment isn't necessarily to the person, but it's
Mhm.
to the marriage itself. Because as
Yes.
people, we are imperfect. We will continue to fail each other without a doubt, right? But when we are just so committed to the marriage, okay, and of course, there's limits to everything. I don't want to just brush over, abuse and all that. But when we're so committed to the marriage of understanding, like there's going to be a lot of sacrifice on my end, and I'm willing to do it without keeping the tally. That's a huge one. Giving selflessly, that changes things.
It does. It changes
Yeah.
things tremendously
Yeah.
because I also heard marriage isn't 50-50, it's
Oh,
100-100.
yeah.
So, if I'm putting 100% of myself into the marriage and
Yeah.
my spouse is putting 100% of themselves into the
Right.
marriage, nobody's keeping tabs.
Right. Yes. Yes. I would like to add to that because with 100, I a part of like that sacrifice and that compassion is knowing that my 100 probably doesn't look like their 100
Yes.
and having room for that, right? Or my 100 today probably would have been 50% yesterday, but
Yeah.
this is what I can give today that is like the most that I can give.
And if we're constantly talking about that,
Yes.
like, I'm at 50% today, or
Yeah.
I'm at 10% today, or whatever I'm at, then they can
Yes.
make up the difference and vice versa. So we're
Yeah.
sharing the load versus trying to make it all about one person or the other.
Absolutely. Yes. It's huge. Like that is such a big part of our fire marriages is the willingness to have that communication. I remember talking to a couple not too long ago about how I'm like asking when he's coming off shift, is there a conversation like, hey, how was your night? How are you coming home feeling? Checking in. W- Where is the percentage of your battery? Are you at 10%? Are you 75? Like, what is it that you need that will help you transition back into the home? Because I get, not all of our men are at super busy stations, but some are. I remember when my husband served in a city where he was lucky to have gotten like 4 hours of sleep over 3 nights.
Oh, wow.
And that was, of course, when we had two babies. So that was
Oh,
great.
that's fun.
That's so amazing, right? Yes.
Right.
But just like getting to understand of like, okay, they are coming in a shell of a person. What do I need to do so that I'm not placing unrealistic expectations on him when he walks through the door that I could just hand him kids and then I leave for Pilates or whatever, you know?
Right.
Because those conversations are so huge. And I feel they would really minimize like understanding where your partner's at and vice versa too, right?
Mhm.
Of them coming home like, how was your night? How was it? How have they been? Really getting into the nitty gritty of how things are, then you're both being able to be more compassionate because then you're getting a better understanding of where each other's at rather than already starting to build a resentment of they don't understand me, they're going to go take a 5 hour nap, all the other things.
Yeah. Yep. It's all the unknowns. We
Yes.
we make up stories in our heads, and that's what
Yes.
starts the resentment because we're making up some false narrative. They absolutely wanna be there with you. They
Yeah.
absolutely missed you while they were gone,
Yeah.
but they also absolutely may not have gotten any sleep.
Right. Yes.
And how many days can you go without sleep?
Oh,
Not very. I mean, I can't even go a whole night without it.
oh
Like,
my God.
forget it.
Yeah. No.
I would not be able to function, okay?
No. Yeah.
So, how
Yes.
are we now expecting our first responders to be
Yeah.
working 3-day shifts and only getting 4 hours of sleep within that 3 days,
Right.
and then come home and be functioning adults for the family? Like,
Yeah.
of course they need a nap.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and also having a conversation about how long of a nap they need and
Mhm.
when they can reintegrate back into the family and what they feel their capacity is within
Yeah.
that helps a lot.
Gosh, yeah. A lot of communication, like being really clear and direct, trying to minimize as many assumptions as possible or trying to read into the subtext of what they're saying. That just sets up everybody for
Mhm.
conflict.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes. Yeah.
And hindsight, of course, is always 2020,
Of
guys,
course.
so don't think that we didn't have a lot
Mhm.
of these issues
Oh my
ourselves.
gosh. Yes. Yeah. I still have to catch myself of like, no, I need to ask a more direct question. I
Mhm,
have to be willing to have that uncomfortable conversation about whatever it might be,
mhm.
because it's easy for everyone to want to avoid those conversations because they could be so heavy and they can open up a can of worms that we've all right been avoiding for such a long time because it felt really either scary or just we didn't have the energy to go there. But those are those things that if we don't address it now, they just start piling up in the background.
And then you're in crisis mode,
Yeah.
and it's really hard. I will 100% be transparent. It is really hard to get out of crisis mode once you're in crisis mode.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It takes a lot of work, a
Mhm.
lot of personal work, a lot of
Yeah.
work as a couple, and my husband and I have been in crisis mode, so
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, it's easier to have the conversations before you get there,
Yeah.
because once you're in the crisis mode, that's a lot of therapy and a lot of late nights and a lot of crying on the bathroom floor, trust me.
Yeah.
Please take a page out of our book and do it
Yes.
differently.
Yes. Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned the Ignited community very briefly. Tell me
Yeah.
about the Ignited community. What is it? Who's it for? What's gonna be happening?
Yes.
Tell me all about it. Fill me in.
Yes, thank you. We are starting in a soft launch on Instagram, so you can find us at the Ignited Community. And it was built specifically for us, for firewives. As I mentioned, there's my deep dive into couples work, being a part of the Facebook community pages, seeing a lot of the similar questions of lack of emotional intimacy, concerned about their fire spouses' mental health, concerned about addiction, and the challenge. Not just in addressing those when you're in a fire community and you feel, although it's big, it's small too, and there's
Mhm,
worries about that. But the real issue of being able to access competent mental health professionals. And so I've made it my mission in being able to serve on both ends, both in being a fire wife myself and working with fire families and other first responders, of creating this community that has other mental health professionals who I put through a vetting process, talk to them, hear about their story. Ultimately, it's people who have some type of connection to this world because I'm going to take a hard stance that unless you have some type of personal connection, it's hard to really get it. It's like, for instance, taking parenting advice from someone who's never been a parent and not have to be a biological parent, but actual parent. These are struggles that we can read about, but unless you've walked through it, it's very hard to understand it thoroughly. So that's what I love about creating this community of being able to connect with other professionals who have that experience, who I know that if they were to lead a group, which is something that's going to be offered, or if they were to have a one-on-one session with someone, which that's something that's going to be offered, that I am trusting that fire wife or the couple or even the spouse to, sit with someone who I know would be able to help them in that time. There'll be opportunity to connect with other fire wives for that lived experience because I know, once you hear it, kind of like what you're doing, which is amazing of sharing our stories so we're not feeling alone and like a crazy person that am I the only one going through this? Because it can be really
mhm.
isolating, right? And then you feel like you're failing as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, if if you unfortunately maybe you're not connected with other wives in a department, that you have no one to lean on, because more and more fire families have either moved out of the state that they serve or really far away from the city. And so that in-person community can be so hard to make.
Mhm.
So room for that, along with the professionals who will be coming in, will have different courses too on their niche, whether it's, anger management, working with teens, intimacy. Something that I'm really excited to bring to the community is helping wives to be able to see when the repeated trauma exposure is affecting their spouse. Because we're the ones who see them outside of the performance that they have to have on
Mhm.
duty. So we see the residual effects. And so that we're able to start picking up on those warning signs, and then
Mhm.
giving also wives the tools on how to start having that conversation with them, or how to start changing some dynamics in the home that gives the opportunity for the central nervous system to reset, for them to decompress and all that, because the repeated trauma exposure is something that is absolutely not talked about enough.
Mm.
And I think there's this not just stigma that it impacts, but truly a lack of awareness or acceptance that it will affect each person.
Well, it will affect them differently.
Exactly.
Not
And
every person is the same,
exactly,
right?
yes, will affect them differently and at some time. Like, for instance, for those who ended up watching some of the horrific events that happened this last week in our country, that right there is exposure to trauma. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of us have been desensitized to it in some way. But I mean, I came home to find out that my kids had seen it. And that was something that I'm thinking, how is that impacting them? Thankfully, my husband was home, so he spoke to them and all that. But trauma exposure starts to affect how our brain is wired. And then the stories that we start creating around people and relationships and different bigger themes. And now, thankfully, we're in a place where there is more awareness within our community. It's starting to grow, which is great. There's more conversations being had about it, but definitely in how the repeated exposure, because right, they get exposed to it 1,000 times more than a regular person would. And that will affect brain functioning um, on,
Mm.
like you said, differently in each person, but it does have an effect.
Yes, absolutely, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so is there anything else you wanna say before we wrap it up?
I really want to encourage wives, like you mentioned, taking a page out of our book and not waiting until crisis. That if there are challenges already happening in the relationship, whether it's communication challenges, intimacy challenges, parenting challenges too, that to think of reaching out as a preventative rather than waiting to intervention, where there's already been more hurt, more disconnect that has happened. Because, right, once you get there, like you mentioned, it is really more challenging to get back into feeling that you're connected with your spouse. So, whether your spouse is interested in support or not at this time, that if you as a wife are feeling it and seeing it, I cannot encourage you enough to start reaching out. You can reach out to me through the Ignited Community Instagram page, because I'm already started to collect resources of professionals in different states to connect you with an agency, whether it's connected to fire or not, so that you can start, working on your healing journey. Because and I like to make sure to mention this, whether it's just one person of the relationship seeking help, that is going to start helping the relationship to heal and getting on a healthy path. So you don't need both of you in the room. It just takes one person to start changing the dynamic.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
So
you.
they can reach you at Ignited Community on
Yes.
Instagram. Is
Yeah.
there any other means to contact you that we should tell them about?
Also, the De Leon Institute on Instagram that's connected. That would be the best way and the quickest way because I'm checking that every day right now. And I also link my email on there as well, which is the ignited community at gmail.com would be another way to get a hold of me.
Okay, and we'll put all the links in the show notes so that you can find them.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chelsea. And so appreciate you creating this space to be able to share these stories so that no fire wife has to feel like she's alone on this journey.
Thank you so much for being part of it.
You're welcome. Thank you.